And this is the part where we talk, where we wonder, is it live yet? As I watch the, okay. Oh, and we're live. Great. I said I'd start the intro, so suddenly I don't know what I'm going to say. Welcome to the, what are we calling this? The Mac and Pearse show, the Pearse and Mac conversation. I don't know. Welcome to it. If you are watching this, if you're playing it back later and not watching this live and you're seeing this on my channel, don't forget to subscribe so that you can get notifications when we do this in the future. I'm Mac Frazier, and this guy over here is my brother, Pearse.
Hi.
How you doing, Pearse?
I'm Pearse Frazier, Mac's brother. Nice to see you all again, although I don't see any of you, but it's nice of you to see me, and it's nice of me to see Mac.
Yeah. So how
are you
doing,
Mac?
I get to ask you. How are you doing, Pearse?
I'm doing well. You know, one of the things that's interesting about this show for me is that we ostensibly are doing it so that we can talk about religious stuff. We're both pastors.
Yeah.
I'm down in Atlanta. You're down in Maryland, or up in Maryland.
Sure.
And but actually, we're also doing it because we're brothers and we like each other. And strangely enough, we don't actually talk that much. So this is one of our opportunities.
Yeah.
So if you are tuning in and you're expecting something religious, we will get there, but we always banter a little bit first, just to
banter is my religion.
You know, when I was growing up, I remember you telling me that you hated small talk.
I don't like big talk.
I'm not sure that's true.
Oh, well, it took me a long time to figure out how to do social small talk with acquaintances and strangers.
That makes sense.
But I do like meaningless conversation with people I have deep connection with, for sure.
Oh yeah, that I can relate to. Meaningless conversation with people you have deep connection.
Right. Well, because the connection gives it meaning. I hope.
You say so.
Yeah.
You've already lost me. Hopefully you haven't lost them.
There's something about doing this on Sunday night. I don't know if this is true for you, but Sundays take a lot out of me. I enjoy preaching, but the emotional energy expenditure of sort of being on and then sort of afterwards and sort of all the social stuff that happens after that. By Sunday night, I'm tired mentally, emotionally, and physically. And when I get tired, I guess I'm a little bit less inhibited and more inclined towards goofiness, which probably colors this conversation.
That definitely describes me very much so. And it's always a little funny because, you know, I get up there, I preach, then I do questions and comments after every service. And then I go and I'm trying to be really super social and friendly to all the people. Mm-hmm. And then there's like 3 people that I have to talk to for whatever reason. And there's one person who I know didn't. And it's just so exhausting for me socially. And then when I get home, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing work. I'm dad. Right. I'm going to help out. I'm going to do stuff around here. And by the time it's nighttime, I am done.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, it's still the best time for us to do this now rather than some other time.
I'm starting to wonder if that's true, but okay.
Yes. You know, I am missing out actually on playing a board game right now.
With who?
2 of my buddies called Gloomhaven. And if you have not played Gloomhaven, it is the best board game of all time.
I have not played it yet, but it's on my list.
It is not overrated. It's like the Beatles. It's just not overrated.
Wow.
And it comes in like a massive box that's like that big. It's just thick with lumber.
I have hefted a box at a local game store with a certain amount of.
It is phenomenal. We've played it dozens of hours, and it continues to delight. But I was like, no, I can't. It's Sunday night. I'm doing this thing.
Do you have a regular gaming group?
I do. I technically have 2, although one of them is made up of a smaller cadre of the larger one. So we have a group that plays D&D usually once a week, and then a smaller group of them who all live within about 2 minutes of me. We play board games.
Cool.
And so, yeah, it's great. What's one of the best things about it is that a lot of them are dads, most of them. And so they appreciate that I have to put my kids to bed, that I have to go to bed, and that I'm married, and that I have a certain lifestyle and certain values, and they respect them. And so that's really helpful. Yeah. I really like that.
Are they members of your congregation, or are they outside the group?
Only one member is a member of the congregation, and I actually brought them into the group, into the gaming group.
Cool.
So yeah, it is very good. It's a good mix.
Yeah.
But
I'm starting to have a gaming group coalesce here within the congregation. There was already a fairly active board gaming
Nice.
set, and I've been plugging into that, and that's been really nice.
Well, Gloomhaven
All
is
right.
my recommendation for the evening.
It's a bit of a purchase, right?
Yeah, it's like $100,
Yeah.
but I've definitely played it for more than 100 hours.
Well, there you go. That's really
Oh yeah, dirt cheap. It's the cheapest board game I've ever played.
Yeah. In that
There you
sense. Yeah.
go. Yeah. But anyway, so how are you? Why are you tired? What did you preach on?
So for the past 3 weeks, I've been going through the story of the Neo-Assyrian Empire's attempt to conquer all of Judah, and with a focus on the siege in Jerusalem, and Sennacherib sending his evil mastermind, super diplomat, cupbearer, the Rabshakeh, to intimidate and negotiate with King Hezekiah. And it's a great story. Just there are certain parts of the stories in the Word that I would love to see a full-blown, big budget cinematic treatment of, and this is one of those stories. It has just so many great sort of dramatic moments. I know you've preached on this as well.
Yep.
So you know the story, and it just, and the thing is, the main part of the story takes 2 chapters in the second book of Kings, and there's just so much there. I stretch out over 3 Sundays, but even so, Sundays 2 and 3, I have to spend a little bit of time on recap because there's always new people there, and sometimes people forget stuff, and all the details of the story all sort of connect with each other. And so the third, I think the next time I do this series, I may have to rework it. I feel like too large a percentage of today was recapping the 2 previous Sundays, but it's just such a great story. I kind of get carried away when I'm retelling the story. I can kind of tell it from heart now.
Yeah, it's always a little bit awkward. Like, how much are you going to retell the congregation that you already told them? And how do you recap a story when you need them to remember all the details?
Yeah.
Especially when it's a story like that, which we love, but I would guess most people aren't super familiar with. It's not like the story of Exodus or something from the Gospels.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually one of the fun things that I get every time I've preached on this. I say every time. This is twice now. I've treated this story. But each time I've had people say, wow, I have never really heard that story before. Or, I think I probably came across it at least once, but I just don't remember it very vividly. And I spent a good bit of time on the first Sunday, especially kind of getting into the historical contextual part of it and explaining, stuff like the Assyrians were the first to actually have a professional military with government-issued combat boots and doctrines of warfare and stuff like that, which is perfect because symbolically, as a symbol for the human ability to reason and to rationalize, well, of course, the Assyrians should be like clever and intelligent about how they go to war. Anyway, so I get into all the historical stuff, talk a little bit about some of the archaeological evidence of the events. I try not to do that too much when I preach because I know some people are not as excited by historical and narrative detail, but there are others who love that stuff. And so I try to, give people a balance.
Yeah, and I try to make sure that when I do that, I let them know up front why I'm doing that. You need to know these details because I'm going to talk about them in a minute.
Right.
Well, the thing I like about that story and stories like it is a piece of advice I got when doing children's talks.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, if you have a story from the Word, from the Bible, and you're doing a children's talk, tell the story. You don't have to do Youseetimmy or any kind of thing like that. Just tell the story. And the story itself is the children's talk.
For
all you have to do is
audience, would you like to define what a Youseetimmy is?
Yes, a Youseetimmy from Lassie. If you've never seen Lassie, good. But if you have, then
Lassie.
You know that there's this little boy, Timmy, and he always does something dumb that his parents told him not to do, like play near the well.
Yeah.
And then he falls down the well, and then the dog, Lassie, runs home and barks, goes, woof, woof, woof. What's that, Lassie? Woof, woof. Timmy, he's playing at the well? Woof, woof. And he fell down the well? We'll go rescue him. and they rescue Timmy out of the well and they drag him home. And at the end of every show, the mom or dad always says, well, you see, Timmy, that's why we don't play at the well.
Right.
As if we couldn't have figured that out.
Right. Yeah.
It's this is the lesson you're supposed to learn from the story.
Yes.
And the reason why the show Lassie is so annoying in my mind is actually just that you see Timmy at the end.
Uh-huh.
I think that show would be so much better if they didn't have the sort of, well, that's why. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
it's just a story.
Well, see, I love the concept of the Youseetimmy, which I think I first heard of watching that movie about the political speechwriters that were dating each other. I don't remember what it was called. And maybe it's good. Yeah. Maybe Past Relation recommended. I don't know. It's a long time ago. But I think about this often, especially when crafting children's talks, because there's a real pull towards doing that. And it can come off very heavy-handed, and it's not really always necessary. It's not the same thing as wanting to make certain that when you preach that you are preaching life and that it is relevant and applicable to people's stuff. But it can sometimes, you can trick yourself into thinking that you need to do a Youseetimmy just to preach life, and you really don't.
Well, I think that adults need a Youseetimmy more than kids do.
That's probably true, yeah.
And that's why adults do that to kids. But for kids, they just need the story because they're not really into the whole Youseetimmy thing. Like, okay, they do need to know that they shouldn't play near the well. But if you're talking about how a person can use their reason and rationalization to justify doing evil things, even when they know that they're true, and in this case, they're sort of lying to themselves, that is so far beyond an 8-year-old's ability to appreciate and understand. Don't do that to them. Right. Just tell them a story. Later, they can get that whole, this is what's rationalizing, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it for me.
And the Youseetimmys that I find are useful when teaching adults are often pretty subtle and complicated ones too. Like there's already an obvious moral point to everything that's going on as you sort of go through one of these stories. But there's often another layer to it or something that's not so obvious. And that's where you really want to say, oh, and by the way, have you noticed that there's this other storyline happening and here's what that's really all about or whatever it is. And kids aren't tracking multiple levels in the same way adults hopefully are.
Yeah, another piece of advice I got about that, and this was from Andy, who's teaching religion and science, Andy Heilman, in Kempton, a high school. And he was giving me advice on how to teach teenagers religion. And he says, what you need to know is teenagers are really, really good at being judgmental.
Yep.
Too good.
Yeah.
And the problem is that if you get them to focus on themselves, they'll just condemn themselves. They'll be so self-critical and so judgmental that they won't actually give themselves a break when they really should, which I thought was interesting. He says, instead, don't get them to judge each other either. They're going to be really good at that.
They don't need help with that.
They don't need help judging their parents. Instead, give them somebody to judge. That's what's great about reading the word or reading a story. Like, we can look at Sennacherib or Rabshakeh or Hezekiah or Isaiah, and we can judge them.
Right.
We can make good judgments about it, and we can think critically. Or another example is like in Henry V. We can look at the King of England and really judge him and say, okay, well, was he doing this because he wanted to look glorious in front of his men, because he wanted to look powerful in front of his future wife, because he really, truly loved England? And we can actually make those judgments now.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I love teaching the life of David stories to older kids, is in particular David's relative and on and off head of his military, Joab, because it's really easy to engage the kids by saying, okay, Joab, good guy, bad guy. And then you go back to it over and over again because his motives are really kind of complicated. Yeah. And he does good things for terrible reasons. And sometimes he does the right thing for what could be a good reason, and sometimes he just does terrible things. And the kids love getting into, it was terrible that he did that. And then you can sort of push it a little bit and say, yeah, but why did he do it? Well, why did he say he did that? And the conversations are awesome. The kids lock into it really well. And there's a lot of really fun stuff that you can get just sort of wrestling with that part of the story.
Yeah,
And
and I think it's important that we practice, especially as teenagers, judging characters from stories, even if they're true historical characters,
right.
like Joab or Henry V or Hezekiah, because we are actually supposed to be good at judging ourselves.
Eventually, yeah, that's the goal.
This is a little trick I do in a lot of sermons, and if you've heard me preach, I'm sorry I'm revealing the trick. But I will start talking about something that I know people start imagining public figures or friends who do this bad thing. Like, imagine a politician who says really annoying things on Twitter, and sometimes it's dishonest and it just drives you nuts. And then when you call them on it, he or she says, "What? I didn't say anything. I was just, using words." People are like, "Oh, I know who you're talking about." I'm like,
right.
well, who I'm talking about is actually you,
Yeah.
meaning all y'all. I think we
Yeah.
all do something kind of like this. And
To
then we can
quote
get in.
Nathan, you are the man.
Right, exactly. And so, but it's handy to have these public figures so that then we can reflect on ourselves, because we can't actually change them directly, but we
Yeah.
can change ourselves. I
Yeah.
think that's a key lesson. Not one I want to focus too much on with teenagers, because they're not really ready to change themselves too much. They should.
Yeah,
But
I got a little bit into with the kids talk today. What are really some, I think, more advanced adult ideas related to what temptation is. But I went into it knowing that this time around, I was going to give them stuff that really wasn't going to be that useful to them where they are now, but that would plant seeds later, hopefully. And I try not to do that very often. But I, the kids in this group that I've been preaching in front of, they've been demonstrating some really sort of sharp, advanced thinking. So I thought, oh, maybe I'd give them a little bit of it. But for the most part, I try not to do that. I don't know. Can you tell I'm having some second thoughts about how I did today in general?
well, that's going to be the way things are.
Yeah.
You're always going to be. Well, also I've tried to tell parents this. You have to understand that when I'm giving a children's talk, I am giving a talk to a 3-year-old and a 12-year-old,
Because that's
and
what you
all
got,
these different ages in between. And sometimes I'm going to say stuff for the 12-year-old, and I know I've just lost the 3-year-old. It's
Yep.
just the way things are.
Yep.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's just the 12-year-old sitting there. He needs something too. So I try
Yeah.
to add a little bit. Today, we actually were talking about the Lord's teaching about prayer and about hypocrites.
Yeah.
And that was really good, because that's something that kids can get right away. Although one of the 3-year-olds did guess, or I guess he's 5, he said, "Is that a crate of hippos?" And he was not being snarky. He genuinely was trying to figure out. Hypocrite and crate of hippos? I thought that was a great one. You can, and I love it when the kids answer questions. So
Yes.
I said, that does make sense. But what was good about talking about hypocrites for kids is I could talk to them about what it means to say the blessing right before the meal in order to look like the kid who's saying it properly, knowing that you're not looking over at other kids. You're being really good, and everyone can see how good you're being. And that is the wrong reason why you should say the blessing. And that's being a hypocrite. And they could get that. They'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to think about the blessing when I say it." Yes, you are. Which directly relates to what the Lord was teaching.
Nice.
So it's a good little moral lesson that they can actually grasp. And so that was fun today.
Cool.
It was fun with the kids. Yeah.
Do you feel good about your preaching today?
I did. I was nervous about it going into it. But I knew what my adult topic was going to be about, but I had to call sort of an audible, if you will, with the children's topic.
Yeah.
Which I do sometimes, but sometimes they don't line up.
Do you feel like you're a good judge of your own effectiveness, like coming off the pulpit?
No. I mean, yes and no. I can tell when I'm doing a better job. But I sometimes I will realize 15 minutes afterwards that I missed a transition that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Or it's usually errors of omission. That's my real problem. Like, oh, I wish I had said,
yeah.
So, and I don't know when I've done that because how would I know?
Right. Or you would have said it.
Right. So I just don't know. And then my congregations have always been very nice to me.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
That's been
I've
my
had
experience
people,
too. Is
but,
there's usually like somebody who's willing to give you criticism, sometimes undeservedly, sometimes deservedly, but people tend to be pretty nice about it.
yeah, I've had people give me criticism that was very useful, but it's often not about what I said.
How you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's hard to be self-critical about that kind of thing. It's interesting, we have, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I have regional pastors or other supervisors come down to sort of observe me, I guess, or meet with the congregation or talk, basically to do a review of me.
Yeah.
And they always say, hey, do you want me to preach for you? And because I'm the only guy down here, I really would love a break.
Right.
But if they're not seeing me preach, they're like not seeing like one of the major things I actually need feedback on.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think I'm going to tell them from now on, no, don't preach for me. You need to see me preach.
I actually have a deal with my regional pastor. We sort of set it out ahead of time, where he at least for this first year, this is my first year here, he's doing 2 visits. He's done 1 already, but the plan was first visit, I'm there primarily just to support you. I'm not going to be holding meetings with the congregation, but you preach. Let me see you in action, just see you with your people so I can get a sense of what you're doing here. And then
this is what he's saying to you.
And then, right, this is what he's saying to me. And then, half a year later or whatever it is, I'll come down for like the actual evaluation review and do that whole thing. And I'll give you a break then and I'll preach, having already seen you preach. And I think that's a good system.
Yeah, that is. Are you changing the way you preach lately?
Well, I'm always kind of feeling like I've changed the way I preach because I really feel like I hit my best preaching form when I was in Austin. And I've since then had to kind of roll it back for other places that I've been because, people are used to different things. In Austin, I was starting from scratch. There was no pre-existing congregation. And so it was an opportunity for me to experiment with some of my ideas and theories about public communication. And I could really hone it in and get the sermon to work sort of structurally exactly the way I want it to.
Right.
But I can't just inflict that on people that are used to other forms and patterns.
It's sort of like we talked about last week, how, I've got the one congregant who says, amen. Right. You were saying, I remember you telling me that in Austin, you could have a real conversation as part of the quote unquote sermon portion.
Yeah.
But in existing congregations where they're used to a more lecture format, I've tried to encourage my congregation to be more conversational, but they've said, look, we wouldn't mind doing that, but we're also here because we want to hear your opinion. Right. We want to hear your thoughts. And more importantly, we want to hear what the Lord says. Yeah. So we don't want to hear what everyone else thinks. We want to hear what you think the Lord thinks.
Yeah. Well, and
I appreciate that.
I totally appreciate that. My goal, my desire, and I am, wherever I go, I try to slowly sort of bend people in this direction gently. It's not that I'm looking for people, for additional preachers to stand up and join that way, so much as, a lot of the things that we talk about and that we're sort of mentally wrestling with in the context of studying the Word are confusing. And sometimes they're challenging. And I know I sometimes say things that just, they don't land. Like either the way I've said it or because of how somebody's hearing it, it's not connecting. It's not making sense to them. And I want an environment in which people are free to say, whoa, wait. So what you're saying is, and then feed it back to me or to ask a question or say, that doesn't make sense to me, because then I want to stop and spend time with it so that it does make sense. And that's different from like what I've often seen when there's like a Q&A at the end of a sermon. I've done that in a bunch of places, and I think that's better than no back and forth. But it's been my experience that when you have it at the end, it does lean more towards occasionally somebody, stepping up to the mic to sort of give their sermonette as well.
Hmm.
And it's not that I don't want to give people a voice, but yes, I'm very aware that the other people in the congregation, they're not really there to hear additional takes on a subject.
Down here in Atlanta, I'm very fortunate. We do questions and comments after every service.
How's that go for you?
It's great. It's a pretty even mix of different people. I've had a couple of people who are new to coming to church with us this year who say, it was amazing. The pastor actually answered my question in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And he didn't know one part. And he said that. I was just amazed. And that was a large reason they came back.
Yeah. Saying I don't know is very powerful.
Yes. But it's also great because I don't call it questions and answers. It's not Q&A. It's questions and comments.
Good.
And I'm very open about it being comments. And what I love especially is testimonial witnessing type things. Not like someone gets up and gives their 10-minute story.
Right.
Just someone says, I really liked this thing that you said here because I've been thinking about this. Very short and brief. And that's great. And so, I don't know, my group is just really good about that kind of thing. And I really appreciate them. Yeah.
Nice.
It's not a surprise, but it's just a pleasant thing that I didn't have anything to do to create. I just opened the space and they filled it with this nice thing.
Nice. Beautiful.
And that's really great. Yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Cool. I don't, do you see the comments on our stream?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to throw out there. Dane says, hey, Frazier. So I just want to say, hey, Dane, welcome. Good to see you. Well, I don't see you. Good to be seen by you.
Yes.
Dane's a good friend. Something about what you said triggered something in my mind, and it's Sunday night. So
there you go.
Hey, daylight savings is awesome.
No, it's not.
I am beyond like any. It's evil. I'm against it. I think.
You know what?
Have
wrong. You and I both listen to Jonah Goldberg sometimes.
Yep, he's one of the people I listen to.
And he jokes about how his view of intellectual history and political history has changed, and that he recognizes now that things are more about social constructs and culture and technology happening in an emergent way rather than some bad idea being cooked up in a German lab somewhere and being exported to the world.
Right. A German
daylight savings was cooked up in a German lab.
Totally was.
And exported to the world.
It literally was.
A very specific example of a nasty Bismarck idea that we're all stuck with.
Why are we stuck with it though? We need to throw off these shackles.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get too political, but to change one simple law is a lot of work. Because then you have to basically hitch your wagon to that, and you have to be willing to compromise on other things. So if somebody actually wants to get that changed, somebody else is going to say, well, are you willing to compromise on gun control or pro-choice, pro-life? Or are you willing to compromise on this tax bill? And people are like, no, I'm not willing to compromise on those things for daylight savings.
So let's do it at the state level then. I mean,
but even at that level.
So every once in a while, you have an election where you look at the slate. I'm not saying anything about any particular election, but every once in a while, you look at the slate and you think, I don't want to vote for any of these people. If any one of them were to step up and say, I promise you, I will put an end to daylight savings, even if it's a kooky way that they're going to do it. You know what? That would tip my vote at this point.
Yeah, was it Chris Christie? And he failed to do this, but he ran partly in New Jersey. He said, I'm going to get rid of the toll booth operators on the New Jersey Turnpike. Right. And people are like, yes, vote for him. And he got in, and then he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You can't actually do that. Well, so even if a candidate said they were going to do it, I don't believe they could. It just ain't happening.
It's just so stupid. And it hurts me when people defend it too. Like, oh, but I like the extra daylight.
Here's the thing. There are people listening perhaps right now who love it.
I'm sure.
We have to decide, do we want them to be our enemies, or do we want to pick a more important battle?
Okay, here's the thing. So look me right in the eye. If you're somebody who thinks, you know what, daylight savings, it's not evil. It's okay. It's no big deal. Maybe even that you love it. This is like from the bottom of my heart. I want to say I love you, and you're wrong.
There you go. I love you.
And if that means you're never going to tune in again, I'm really sorry, but I think that's a mistake as well.
Yes, I love you, but again, you're wrong.
Yeah, Dane's on our side. Okay, cool.
Oh, good. Well, there's one. All right. Well, I am getting goofy. We're talking about daylight savings, so
And we're at 30 minutes here.
Monday is, yes, indeed, and we're at 30 minutes, so we could probably wrap it up.
Okay.
But should people hit the subscribe and
They should smash that daylight savings button and comment and tell us how stupid we are. No, yes. So the best way to help us is the best way to help me. You don't have a YouTube channel yet. We'll start plugging that eventually. But if you go to my YouTube channel, which is The Big Idea with Mac Frazier,
huge.
It's a huge idea. The Big Idea. There are links all over my Facebook page to this. Go there and subscribe. I've just launched it. I think I've got just a handful of subscribers right now. Get other people to subscribe, because the way YouTube works is after you hit certain thresholds, they turn on certain features because you've proven that you're for real. So help us prove to YouTube that we are for real and that this is something that people want to watch. And besides that, just, watch my page on Facebook. If you're friends with Pearse, you have a public page.
Yes.
Okay, so watch Pearse's page as well, and we'll give heads up when future videos are going to happen. But by and large, we're shooting for Sunday nights, starting sometime between 8 and 9 usually.
Yep. And another way you can help us, and this really would help us, is comment below.
Yes.
Because we actually do want to hear from you.
Yes.
Live, but also especially in your reflections.
Yeah.
What did you think? What did we say that was confusing? What should we clear up? What great idea you want to enlighten us with? What questions do you have? What should we talk about next time?
Mm-hmm.
Was there not enough hockey talk?
That we're wrong about daylight savings. I mean, we'll disagree with you still, but you can say it.
Yeah. But seriously, comment. We'd love to hear from you. Is there anything else that the good listeners need to hear?
I'm still looking for submissions for theme music.
Oh yeah.
We need something good. And if somebody doesn't send me something soon, I'm going to start adding nonsense.
Well, yeah. Well, the theme music to Action News is actually like 30 years old and was used by like 50 different stations. It's only used by one in Philadelphia now. Yeah. But we could grab it.
I wonder if we could grab the club remix that the DJ for the Flyers used during a warm up.
Yes, that could be good.
Because that
You know what? I'm pretty sure I could get my son to drum something for us. I don't know. It'd be pretty wild, but he does scream sometimes while he drums, and it's usually something along the lines of, oh,
you know what?
Oh.
That could be our theme song.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Okay, so this is the part where we say something snide about our brother Scott and then sign off. So I did it last time. What do you got to say?
Well, actually, I'll compliment him. I am part of a D&D group down here, and the best campaign world I've ever played in was my brother Scott's. And that's one of the things I actually miss about living up north in Pennsylvania, strangely enough, and it sounds silly, but it really is true, is playing in my brother's D&D world.
Yeah, me too.
And yes, I miss my mom, and I miss my kids having grandparents, and I miss various friends and family, but that was a really cool world with a really great concept about religions and what it would be to actually be polytheistic. Mm-hmm. Or henotheistic, if you don't know what that is.
Hey, I had a monistic character in his campaign world.
Oh yeah, not monotheistic.
The monistic. Yeah.
Yes, I know. So no, it was a great way of exploring cool ideas, and I think that was partly a reflection of his appreciation for the history that we were talking about, like Hezekiah and the background. So he actually would add a lot to that conversation.
Yeah.
So I'll compliment him this time. Maybe I'll catch more flies with honey.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
And yes,
hear that, Scott? We would like you to join us as a DM.
yes, you're the fly. We're the honey. Come on down.
Okay. All right. Well, goodbye, Holly, Dane, others, and have a good night, Pearse. I hope you
Yep.
get some sleep, and that somehow or another you recover from this daylight savings
Wastings.
disaster. Yeah, daylight wastings
Yes.
time.
Well, the real issue is, will my kids wake up on time? And will they be polite to me when I put them to bed early? Because
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
All right. Have a good night, Pearse. Bye.
Bye-bye.